Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vintage Super League. I'm Luis Scott Vargas here with Eric Froelich, ready to commentate on some matches.
Oh yeah, what we do.
You're potentially hoping that I guess the Steel City Vault or whatever your deck is called this week picks up a win since it has not done so so far.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. How did you know?
Though it's guaranteed to get a win. You're playing Dave, and you guys are playing the exact mirror because you tested together.
Oh,
So
he's
uh,
playing Angel City Vault, and I changed a few cards, so I'm playing Sin City Vault.
okay,
But
perfect.
neither deck has a good matchup against any other deck in the field, which is unfortunate. In the 70 card mirror, it just comes down to which city's better, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And unfortunately for Steve, he's playing against Randy, who's playing Null Rods, and I imagine Null Rod is pretty far down on the list of cards you want to face.
Yeah, but I mean, we've said that about pretty much every card that we've seen. Like Pyromancer's low on the list, and Treasure Cruise, and Counter Spells, and Null Rods, and Creatures, Combos, Control.
Yeah,
We haven't found anything that we're like looking to play against. I'm guessing that like maybe Esper Hate Bears, but no one would ever come with that. So that's pretty much all we're looking to play against. I'm thinking.
yeah. People were a little fast. The people who didn't play Blue Red Delver were a little fast and loose with their decks. Raptor and I are playing a decks that literally can deck themselves more often than win. That are based around Yawgmoth's Will and Dig Through Time.
Yeah,
and
no, man, you guys went deep. This is what happens when you have 25 minutes after getting back from PT to brew a vintage deck.
It's true. I mean, I obviously didn't play a single game with the deck I'm playing. I actually played more games with the deck Tom's playing, and I told him to play it because it was great, and then he played it. Now he's unfortunately 1-1. I thought he
Of
was
course,
pretty
the
far
one
ahead that
time
last.
where I don't have time to play test and don't have deck is the time where I have to play you and can't just get a great deck. No, I
Yeah,
see.
well,
You're a good teammate. You're a great quarterback.
we had to
I'm
play each
happy to call
other.
you my friend.
If we
Uh,
didn't have to play each other, I would have talked to you about what we were going to play. But
no,
since we're battling on the fields of justice next week, I guess we'll
yeah,
see how that goes.
we just go back to our vintage challenge when I found you 3 times very easily.
All right. Well, it looks like they're ready for the match, so let's head on down. All right. Uh,
And we're back in the booth.
that was quick, but we're back.
Slash LSV's guest room. Angel Vidi Vault. I like it.
Well, that hand looks pretty busted. It's got a lot of restricted cards in it. I mean, that's and a Force of Will, which is kind of where you want to start.
No land.
Well, who needs land when you have Lotus?
That's true. Although some people do. Randy is playing blue cards or also playing a screen of text, depending.
Yeah, I mean, Steve's got the turn one, probably leading with Ancestral, so you can force pitching the Preordain, and then presumably do some other things with the mana floating, depending on what Randy's got.
Right, yeah. Steve's hand definitely looks fun. Could be incredibly busted. I mean, we've seen a lot of draw threes cast in the past few hours of watching Vintage. Like, obviously, we have a lot more Ancestrals in the format thanks to Treasure Cruise, and a lot of them have been drawing 3 lands, but
This is true.
yeah, you never
And
know what you're going to get.
it looks like Randy's on the play here, which is okay, but he kind of needs it given that he starts on 2 and has no Moxes in his opening hand. So,
Yeah. No, I mean, both hands are pretty sweet.
yeah, unsurprisingly, like you said, if Steve Ancestral's into 3 bricks, Randy's going to win kind of easily because his Null Rod's going to shut down a lot of what Steve's got. But Steve, between the Preordain and the Ancestral, has a pretty good shot of finding, some action. Turn 1 Tinker for Inkwell, I think, is pretty unbeatable here. Or at least
Yeah.
it's close.
It is not an easy thing to race.
No. I mean, Randy's deck is one of the few that can, though. Like, if Randy goes, Adept into Lord, maybe he's got a shot, but it's still pretty tough if Steve gets it on the board before Randy gets a single creature. If
Right.
if Steve Ancestral's into a Tinker right away.
Yeah, I mean, Angel City Vault, capable of some busted draws.
Steve wouldn't hate drawing a blue card. He wouldn't hate drawing a land. Mox Jet's actually quite good. Do you just Mox Jet Vampiric for Tinker right here?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the play. I think he's playing Soul Ring first to induce a misstep, but Randy doesn't have one.
Yeah, that's a smart play.
I mean, you just go for it. You've got Force of Will backup. Like, Randy has to have a lot to stop you here.
Yeah, essentially 2 Force of Wills because, I mean, you can't really allow Soul Ring to resolve if you have Misstep.
Yeah.
It's at least not going to happen very often.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think Steve's pretty aggressive. I would assume he goes for the Tinker here,
Yeah, I would.
or he vamps for like Goblin Welder to set up some sweet welding
You don't
action.
get Wheel of Fortune. Isn't
Yeah.
that the turn one go to?
Yeah. Little beats on Dave there.
He's actually not far away from just being able to hard cast an Inkwell Leviathan.
He's dangerously close to being able to like set up some weird Yogg-Will turn, but I think Tinker is just the same thing, but like burns less cards out of your deck.
Yeah, I mean, you're facing down 1 land. This is not really a deck that's going to be able to kill you extremely quickly.
Oh, we're gonna see some vintaging happening.
Have you
I
checked
believe
out
Randy has to win here for the tie to be live.
Does Randy have anything like main deck Oracles?
Let's take a look. I don't believe so though.
There's not a lot of ways to deal with an Inkwell Leviathan once it's
No, it was a good call. You know, Deck Vaden might be the greatest thief in the multiverse, but I can't steal your Inkwell Leviathan. So Randy, of course, going for the force here, and Steve, of course, forcing back. And we're going to be on game 2 relatively quickly, unless the top card is something other than Tinker somehow. Or he draws the Inkwell off the Ancestral.
That have any of the fast mana are so busted, and the ones that don't can sometimes struggle quite a bit. Like, I guess even Catcher here would have been decent, but like, if he had a Mock Sapphire, or especially a Lotus, to be able to go like turn 1 Adept Null Rod, just imagine how good Null Rod would have been in this game.
Oh yeah, that's part of the problem I had.
Is discard.
Yeah, that's part of the problem I had with Merfolk. I mean, obviously I'd never played the deck in a million years, but watching you guys play the deck, if you didn't have the Sapphire or Lotus in your opening hand, it felt like the deck started a turn behind all the other vintage decks.
Yeah, that often happens. It was definitely a turnoff to me when I started looking at the deck, but then, I kind of realized how inefficient a lot of, the fast mana is. Some decks don't even play Black Lotus. And so if you're able to land a bunch of threats and be able to have a lot of disruption, the fact that you can't have that explosive turn is mitigated quite a bit. Of course, the fact that, a lot of the decks that we've seen can just draw Yawgmoth's and come back from any situation is fantastic. And it's a big draw to Vintage. It's a big draw to a lot of decks that the Merfolk deck just doesn't have. It's not coming back from like really far behind. You're not going to do what Josh did last match and draw a gush that just completely turns the game around where you're able to go get Yawgmoth's. But it is consistent, and it will often mean your opponents just really can't do much of anything.
Yeah, I mean the Merfolk deck, it does its thing almost every game. It's not, it punishes your opponents if they have a bad draw, or if Null Rod or Wasteland really hose them, or you have a force for their first big play. But when they go broken, you don't have much recourse.
Nope.
And if Randy doesn't even draw a blue here, he's not really... Time Walk's a thing. What Randy really wanted to be able to do was play a Lord this turn, and then Time Walk next turn. I don't even know if that would have been enough. Put Steve to 14. No, it would have been close, but not quite. Time Walking here, I think, means that Randy's going to have a real tough time out racing. And that even requires him to draw a blue. If he draws Lotus, he's got a shot.
Yeah.
Because Lotus actually wins in the game, right? I mean, if Steve doesn't do anything, because then he goes, Lord, hit Steve down to 11, then next turn have lethal out if Steve attacks with Inkwell.
Yeah, it's true.
But instead, Randy's going to be essentially in chump block mode. Steve also has played more misdirections, I think, combined. I think, oh yeah, I guess you can't even chump block the Inkwell. I think Steve's played more misdirections than the rest of the league combined. I think that might actually be true.
Well,
I think he's played like
to even it out by just playing Steve's list this week.
Yeah, that's true.
He's certainly drawn more misdirections than the league combined.
Yeah, he's played like a lot of them. I mean, he likes that card.
He does. Although he got asked last week whether it was his design of adding misdirections to his deck since he plays so many misdirections. He's like, oh, the original list just has 2. I got lucky this time.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do anything special, just 2 misdirections.
So I can't imagine boarding changes things that much. Randy gets 3 Steel Sabotage and another Null Rod.
Yeah. I mean, those are things.
Steel Sabotage seems a little less effective now that it can't bounce Inkwell. Inkwell seems pretty nice for that.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it interacts with Time Vault Key by bouncing for a turn, or of course countering them, but it's not really a great answer to Tinker very often. I mean, Inkwell Leviathan is a clock. I mean, does a lot of
Yeah.
damage fast. I think Steve probably has some Wrath effects, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Steve has a
Very late.
Toxic Deluge and a Red Blast and a Pyroblast.
Yeah, all those cards are excellent. So, yeah, I mean, Randy can definitely get a fast presence out, and Steve has a lot of ways to search for something like Toxic Deluge and has counters to maybe back it up. So, that's not easy to deal with. I mean, I faced, when I had the Merfolk deck, Bob Maher playing Toxic Deluge in his Oath deck, and it was definitely one of the things you're quite afraid of. Is you need to build up a presence. Like, one Merfolk is not very threatening. You need kind of two to start having a clock, three for a real one. So the prospect of getting three for one is.
Does Steve actually have to side in cards like Grudge, Ingot or Nature's Claim, some combination of those to kill Norod? Norod causes him a lot of problems.
It does cause problems. I mean, you can board in maybe one of them. Like, there are tutor effects, there are draw sevens, and you really only need to bounce, like, let's say, like a Hercule's Recall can handle the No Rod for a turn to just allow you to be able to get out Vault Key and win the game on the spot. So I don't think he necessarily needs to overflow his deck with those cards. I mean, playing reactive cards that don't interact with your opponent's main strategy, which is, of course, casting little creatures, is not necessarily great, but, I mean, he can certainly board out some of his slower cards if he doesn't think they're going to be as effective, and have a few more disruptive elements to be able to, mitigate No Rod a little bit more. I'm not sure.
My guess is the Grudge certainly comes in just because it's efficient and can kill two No Rods. I mean,
right.
But I have liked boarding those in. I have been less a fan of boarding in cards like Shattering Spree, Ingot or Nature's Claim just because they're a little worse value. I guess you can board in Mountain because you're boarding in some Pyroblasts here.
Well, also your opponent's playing a Wasteland deck.
Yeah.
I mean, cards like Dak Faden are kind of slow and don't do it much of anything. Draw two, discard two is a nice ability to have, but it's often going to die in one hit. It's not, cost 3 mana. It's not that cheap, and there's no artifacts to steal. Taking a No Rod's not where you want to be.
Yeah. And there's the Toxic Deluge and the early Tinker once again. The Randy's a little bit more prepared this time, given that he's got Curse Catcher on 1, which helps him, bridge the gap so his force can get him to turn 2 to cast Null Rod.
Randy has the interesting dilemma hand of Silver Galatic and only one other Merfolk with it being a 1-drop, where you don't really want to cast a Curse Catcher turn 1, but not playing a Curse Catcher turn 1 is such an EV tragedy also. It's a really tough spot.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I don't know if you can avoid playing Curse Catcher turn 1. I mean,
if you play Curse Catcher turn 1 and you miss, you're just presenting no threat. I mean, you get to play No Rod, which is nice, but you're kind of giving Steve all the time in the world. Of course, if you draw a Lord, everything is looks great.
Yeah, No Rod is so good against Steve's deck that I would lean towards playing Curse Catcher turn 1, because if you can make it so you can live to play No Rod turn 2, it feels like your deck does so much more than his. But I agree that there's a game here that Randy goes turn 1 Curse Catcher and doesn't draw a Merfolk for 4 turns, and Steve just goes land, win the game.
Right. Of course, having No Rod with Force of Will and Curse Catcher protection is a decent spot to be in. Especially against Steve's hands, which seem to be very land light. The deck not playing very many lands, obviously, with all the artifact mana. So, getting that No Rod out and being able to, really protect it is a pretty nice spot.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the people who played this deck were not hoping to play against No Rod. That's one of the cards you really don't want to play.
That is definitely true. But as we discussed in our opening, there aren't many cards you want to play against. No Rod's just higher on the list.
So I think Steve's looking at a turn 1 Time Walk here.
Let's see. We've got... Yeah.
And because of the Curse Catcher, I think you do have to play Moxjet Soul Ring. If not for the Curse Catcher, you might not do that just to play around Mental Misstep. But given that Mental Misstep is such a prevalent card right now, but you do that. But given there's a Curse Catcher in play, I think you go Jet, Soul Ring, Voltaic Key, Untap Soul Ring, Time Walk. Seems like a pretty good first turn.
Yeah, it's a great first turn. Of course, Randy holding Mindbreak Trap, which can shut down any spell that he wants on the first turn, and also Force of Will, so lots of counter backup should he want it.
I think the way this is going to play out is Randy's going to Mindbreak Trap the Time Walk, and Steve's going to get No Rod.
That sounds like exactly what's going to happen. Question is where he can go from there. Whether he has a reasonable chance to come back, and I'm just not sure that's the case.
I mean, if Steve has like a card like Ingot Chewer in his deck, he might, but then it gets forcible, I guess.
Forcible, so he kind of needs like Ancient Grudge and green mana type thing.
But
I mean, he's gonna have no mana sources.
Steve's not under an incredible clock here, so I think given that, I mean, Preordain might be able to get him back into it.
Good.
Like the Curse Catcher can counter it, but let's say Steve draws a land and goes land, Preordain, land, and then he can just start maybe hardcasting Tinker or finding Pyroblast on the way there. Like it is true that sometimes the Merfolk deck gives you 6 turns, and that's a lot of draw steps.
Steve's deck has a grand total of 12 lands, so the other thing rolling off 3 in a row is not like tremendous. Let's put it that way.
Voltaki showing off its awesome power here.
And awesome pronunciation.
I've been told that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah. No. Well, let me load up dictionary.com and just have it pronounce it.
So you got to go for Time Lock here because of Curse Catcher, and because even if there wasn't a Curse Catcher in play, you'd Time Lock first to try to find Forcible.
Yeah, this was going to be a great first turn, but Randy definitely has a very strong opening hand for this matchup and has a lot of answers. If he draws a Lord,
or really any other Merfolk.
Well, a Lord, I'm saying, probably put the game away before it can even be close.
I also like waiting on the Time Walk and just playing Null Rod here. I think you can do better on Time Walk than 1 point of damage.
For sure.
The biggest upside to casting Time Walk, though, is if you peel a Wasteland off the top, you leave Steve on nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
It's also possible that
you need to get that much value off your Time Walk. I mean,
yeah, you're already kind of crushing. It's also possible that you want to pitch Time Walk to Forcible and just keep Adept in hand because it's just a better Time Walk.
That is possible.
Looks like Randy's running the Time Walk. That's where his mouse is indicating.
He's going to cast something for 2 mana. I feel confident in that.
Yeah. Would be pretty surprising if he didn't. Well, Steve has some time here. If Randy goes, land that aren't wastelands, Steve could find a way out of it. His two cards in hand are quite strong besides the Preordain. The Deluge and Tinker are both pretty good to cast.
True. Well, I mean, Randy still does have a counterspell.
And a Curse Catcher.
Curse Catcher here. Alright.
I would just Preordain here. Trading that for a Curse Catcher is fine.
Yeah. Don't really have much of a choice.
I mean, we could see Tinker with Force back in like 3 or 4 turns here. That is possible.
It is.
We could also see Ingot Chewer, at which point Steve maybe can pitch Tinker to Force here to fight over it.
That was a good job.
That was good. I suppose if Randy drew 2 land in a row, he could just cast Silvergill Adept as well.
Yeah, I think Steve would be happier with that than this outcome. I mean, Randy could have also just drawn, like, Mox Lotus.
Yes, those are Mox Lotus and extra Null Rods are like the couple worst cards in his deck. What if Steve just rolls off a bunch of land? Did you think of that?
He still needs Randy to completely brick, right?
Yes.
Yep, that's not a brick.
That's the opposite.
We're very close to seeing a Game 3 already.
Yes, I would be extremely surprised if we didn't.
I mean, he will have the opportunity to draw 2 lands in a row, right?
Yeah, he gets
like, he can draw like Ponder or some kind of draw spell into some lands, something like that. But like we said, he's only got 12 lands total, so 10 in the deck. So his odds of drawing 2 lands in a row is only 4%. and that might still not be enough.
Randy going for the red source to cut off Pyroblast.
Reasonable. All right, this step should seal it. Well, things definitely change dramatically in Vintage, as we've seen match after match after match based on who gets to be on the play.
Yes, I mean, if Steve was on the play this game, well, actually, it wouldn't have changed that much because Randy had the Mind Break trap specifically. But Randy being on the draw also, limits the no rod a lot as well.
So actually, I think Steve would have been just fine because the no rod doesn't come out till turn 2, which means the time walk's gonna get turned off, but then he's still gonna have Tinker, and then he's gonna have Force of Will up, or various other things can happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly possible. Both draws were quite good that, Randy could have still pulled it out, but the games are so dramatically different based on who gets to put the first land into play or cast the first spell. He's got the full combo.
He does have the full combo.
Right for a turn.
I don't know if there are any outs in the format right now.
No. There are not. Well, no outs that don't involve a Mindslaver lock that involve you
or
your opponent.
I mean, Chain of Vapor it could be an interesting thing. Looks like Randy's got the Pithing Needle, and if you look at the bottom there. So, that could be interesting.
A Time Vault combo deck?
Yeah, shut off Goblin Welder maybe too, if that's an issue.
Turn off, of course, as we've learned, Black Lotus and all
that. Yeah. So
you can just turn off things like Top, which Steve has multiple copies of too, so that's an application.
Yeah, and basically Steve just wants to keep Norwood off the table because I mean his deck is certainly more powerful than Randy's if that's not in play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is Randy's game plan. He's got a couple little beaters and a whole bunch of disruptions. So being on the draw is a huge drawback in that regard because it's hard to, be able to get your aggressive start, get a couple creatures in play, and be able to hold up disruption and cast your null rods and things like that. Being a turn behind is definitely a bad place to be. But it also requires him to not have a great draw and for Steve to have a great draw himself. So
yep,
it's Vintage.
Looks like we're heading back down to the game here.
For all the marbles on 8-way ties.
Yeah. And Randy with no Force of Wills, but Steve on a pretty bad 6 cards here, it looks like.
Yeah, these 6 cards are awful. Literally no action, although, he's an action spell away from just being able to cast it. You can just draw Time Spiral. Has 6 mana, but
I would have trouble mulliganing this hand, but I don't like it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know this deck or if this deck's capable of winning games, but this doesn't
seems
look
like a pretty easy keep while cursing your luck.
Yes. Would be insane if this 8-way tie, looks like whoa, Steve just went right on down to 4. All right. Well, here we are.
So the tie scenario will still be alive.
Steve mulligan that 4-card hand?
I don't know what's happening anymore.
Yeah, I don't understand what's going on. I mean, Mana Confluence, Goblin Welder, Pyroblast alone is a keepable on 4, even if your last card is Inkwell. Though Inkwell with Welder is not absolutely the worst. Yeah, this was interesting sequence of plays here.
Okay. We'll call it that.
I mean, I've never played this deck. I don't know exactly what Steve's looking for, but whatever he's looking for, this isn't it.
Did anyone get a peek at what the 7-card hand was?
No, I think we were in the game. By the time we were in the game, the 7-card was already gone. I didn't even see the 5-card hand. It was just instantly 4.
Yeah, I tried to look in closer, and then it said deciding whether to mulligan to 3. After I was trying to see if Randy was still in the tank to decide whether to keep his 7, which we knew he was going to keep, but I mean, was pretty certain that Steve was going to keep the 6. Not in good hand, but with a lot of outs. Although he could have boarded out a lot of his big card. I don't really know. I mean, he had a lot of disruption in his hand. He got to board something out.
You know, Randy's hand is not absurd. If Steve draws Tinker, he could just win.
Yes, that could happen.
Like,
If there was a way to be able to mystical tutor, sack the Lotus and Tinker, do it all.
well, yeah.
Cast Tinker in your draw step with floating off Lotus or something unreal.
Yeah, and not get Chris Ketchered or misstepped. But it would be unreal if Steve just draws Tinker and then Randy just doesn't draw a blue source.
Yeah.
Misdirections. You know, Steve's got a couple draw steps here. Not a lot, but a couple if Randy doesn't draw blue.
That is true, but there's blue.
Oh, well. That didn't last very long.
No. Can you still misdirect a time walk like the old ones?
I believe so.
Just their next turn or something.
So we're getting close to the spot where even if Steve tinkers for Inkwell, he won't win the race. So at which point he just has to sit there and probably can't win.
Yeah, that's not a great place to be. I'll give you that.
Yeah, being unable to win is tough.
I've been there a few times. I don't love it. I like it. But hey, then you get to do coverage on Sunday. So
there is that. And enough of that, and you start doing coverage on Friday.
Yeah. Well, there's that silver lining, and eventually there's the bronze sable lining.
Yeah. Sometimes you go straight from the platinum lining to the silver lining.
To be fair, it wasn't really even very close to the gold line.
So Randy's got a pretty unstoppable force where even if, like, this is where something like Blightsteel is a little better than Inkwell. Well, I mean, Inkwell actually looks pretty good for this metagame, but Blightsteel would be kind of interesting here. Yes, Tinker for Platinum Angels, the chat says. That would be pretty insane.
That would be great. Although, if he just had Tinker or any spell he could cast at some point in this game earlier, we might have actually seen a game, but...
Oh, yeah, we're well beyond that at this point.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So...
All right, so... 8-way tie.
There we have it.
I chose the perfect deck for the 8-way tie scenario. Give myself the best chance to 0-3.
True.
See, I'm a team player.
I did my part here.
Yeah, you did.
And now we've got you and Dave coming up next. Looks like this, vault deck of various cities is going to get a win. It's going to be on the board here.
Yeah, that's what you call it.
Randy probably just snapping off a misstep here. Doesn't want to get like Toxic Deluged or something.
Well, you can't get Toxic Deluge because you have to pay life.
That's true. He doesn't want to get Pyroclasmed, Bonfired.
Pyroclasm doesn't kill anything. Yeah, you could get Bonfire. That would be kind of awesome. Just that barely does something.
Steve casting gifts.
Yeah, I mean, what else are you going to do?
I guess if Randy misclicks, I mean, there is a sequence of cards that Steve can gift for that if Randy gives him the wrong cards, maybe Steve wins, like Time Twister Academy or something. But
yeah, still no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, playing to your misclick outs is.
That's what Tom was on for the last half of that game against Josh. It almost worked too when Josh hardcast the Gush.
Well, he didn't know that for certain.
Yeah.
Pretty close. I mean, he could have just drawn a therapy or something for Tom and blind ripped every card out of Raptor's hand.
That's true.
And then he could draw like running burn spells. He could probably draw. I don't know how many burn spells are in his deck, but
Tom's not that many.
Yeah.
I mean, he has like Fire, Ice, and some bolts. I mean, the decks don't go too animal and burn just because you don't really need to.
A lot of Raptor's counter magic was like Pyroblast and Force of Wills that he couldn't pay with the 1 life. So If
He had
Tom is like runner, bolt, and can actually, because if he has 3 red sources in his deck, you can cast them all in one turn. In theory,
yeah. I
Paul.
do like that we're treated to Menendian looking at gifts and deciding which pile saves him here.
Yeah, finally another Doomsday pile. That's what the fans want to see. All right, we got one.
We are on the board. Yeah, Academy is definitely part of any potential outs here.
Yeah, it is the key to the misclicks.
And the last one has to be like another mana source, I guess. But then you just get the 2 mana sources.
Well, Randy doesn't know what the last card is in Steve's hand.
This is true.
What if he already had it? Like, if he gives him Academy Mana Corrupt, it just gets like
Time Spiral or something.
Mind's Desired.
Yeah,
I don't know,
jeez.
something.
Steve technically has outs. It would be insane if Steve won this game, but I guess it's on the board in some fashion.
Well, he only has 1 mana left, and there's still a Curse Catcher in play and a Mental Misstep, so if he just doesn't give him the mana sources, is it over?
Yeah, or if he does, also.
Yeah.
So,
no, that is also true.
also with the misstep, it's just over. But still.
Yeah. Well, other than that. Randy, with all these dead wastelands, got pretty unlucky this game.
Yeah.
I feel like you gotta let this Ancestral Resolve just be a little more sporting.
Just for sweat equity, yeah. I certainly agree.
Venice would have allowed it.
Yeah.
All right. Randy Buehler, Bruce to 3 and 5.
Randy Buehler, ladies and gentlemen.
Peace.
Randy defeating Steve's, massive hand of 3 cards there.
This is brutal. We're not going to get any 5th round salt.
Oh, no, well. We are live for the tie. Also,
yeah, I'll do my part by getting incredibly unlucky against Dave now.
Also, depending on how Dave's match goes, we have a 3-way tie for last going into last week.
Yep.
So that's going to be a sweat here, too.
Well, at least a 3-way tie, right? I mean, no matter how it goes.
Yes.
Maybe 3 or 4.
3 or 4-way tie.
It's pretty sweet.
All right. Looks like we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to get the now victorious Randy Buehler on stream.